Somewhere along the frozen edge of an empire, a man who commanded 100,000 soldiers could not command his own thoughts. The night pressed in around his tent, and inside, one lamp still burned. This is the story of what he did before he let himself sleep. By day, Marcus Aurelius was emperor of Rome. Plague behind him, war in front of him, betrayal always somewhere near. Yet each night, stripped of guards and titles, he faced an enemy no legion could defeat. His own restless mind. He did not turn to wine, nor to the comfort of others. He turned to a small scroll, a reed pen, and the quiet discipline of writing to no one but himself. What we now call meditations was never meant for us. It was medicine he made for his own troubled nights. Picture the scene honestly. A man surrounded by absolute power, yet lying awake with the same tightness in his chest that visits us in ordinary rooms 2,000 years later. Anxiety does not care about your rank. It only cares whether you know how to meet it. So each night, before sleep, he lit a second lamp and asked himself a question most of us avoid entirely. What actually happened today, and what did I make it mean? The answer, written slowly by hand, was the beginning of his peace. He would separate the day into two piles, as if sorting stones. In one pile, what was truly his to control, his judgments, his choices, his effort. In the other, everything else, other men's opinions, the weather, the outcome of battles not yet fought. This was not denial. It was surgery. He was cutting away the part of the day that did not belong to him, so that only the manageable remained in his hands before he closed his eyes. Then came the second part of the ritual, and the strangest to modern ears. He imagined losing what he loved, his family, his health, his own life. Not to frighten himself, but to remember that nothing borrowed from time was ever truly owned. The Stoics called this Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils, not pessimism, but preparation. A mind that has already walked through loss in imagination does not shatter when loss arrives in truth. He would think of his wife, his children, his own body, and hold the thought gently, the way you hold something you know is on loan. In this, sorrow and gratitude were not opposites. They were the same breath, taken twice. From there, his mind would rise, literally in his imagination, above the camp, above Rome, above the whole spinning world. He called this the view from above, a way of seeing his life the way the stars might see it. Small, brief, and strangely peaceful, because of it. From that height, his worries lost their weight. An enemy's insult, a senator's scheme, his own fear of failure, all of it shrank to the size of dust motes drifting over an anthill of empires that would each, in time, turn to dust themselves. He reminded himself, in his own handwriting, that emperors before him had raged and grieved and schemed with the same intensity, and now their names were only echoes carved into stone that no one stopped to read anymore. This was not despair. It was release. If glory fades this completely, he reasoned, then so will this specific worry keeping me awake tonight. The thought did not make life meaningless. It made tonight's problems small enough to finally put down. Then, in the final movement of the ritual, he returned to the present, not to escape it, but to meet it plainly. What is my duty tomorrow? Not my fame, not my legacy, just the next right action, however small. He wrote lines to himself like commands to a soldier who had wavered. Rise in the morning to do the work of a human being, not to punish himself, but to remind the part of him that wanted to hide beneath the blankets that duty was also a form of peace. And only then, after the sorting, the imagined loss, the view from above, and the quiet resolve for tomorrow, did he blow out the lamp, not because his problems were solved, but because he had finally placed them somewhere he could survive the night. We tend to imagine ancient wisdom as distant and stone-faced, carved into temples we visit only in documentaries. But this ritual was intimate. It was a tired man alone in the dark, doing the same quiet work of trying not to drown in his own head. Today we carry our anxieties differently. Through screens instead of scrolls, through scrolling instead of writing. But the mind at war with itself has not changed shape in 2,000 years. It still needs somewhere to put its weight down before sleep. Marcus never suggested his ritual was easy or magical. He suggested only that it was necessary, because an unexamined day left to fester in the dark becomes heavier by morning, and a mind that never sorts its stones eventually cannot lift any of them. If you tried it tonight, it might look something like this. 3 quiet questions before sleep. What happened today that was not mine to control? What am I holding too tightly that time will eventually loosen anyway? And what is the one honest thing I owe tomorrow? You do not need a war camp or an empire to practice this. You only need a few honest minutes and the willingness to look at your own mind. The way Marcus looked at the night sky. Vast, indifferent, and strangely comforting once you stop demanding it be otherwise. Somewhere in that ancient camp, the lamp finally went dark, and an emperor who ruled the known world slept the same uncertain sleep as anyone else. But a little lighter, because for a few quiet minutes he had faced his mind instead of running from it. Perhaps that is the real inheritance he left us. Not marble statues or victorious campaigns, but a simple, repeatable act. Write it down, sort what is yours, imagine its loss, rise above it, and then rest. The war within does not end, but some nights it can be quieted.